Hey everyone, it's Desiree, and I am here for Scrapping for Less to reveal and do 5 cards for their Flavor of the Month card kit for August 2019. This is a really cool theme. It is called Exotic Animals, so anything's possible. But let's first look at the kit's contents. So we're going to start out, if you go with the Double Dip Sundae level. Excuse me. This is the box that it comes in, and first we're going to go through the card stock. So you get 2 pieces of 110-pound Nina Classic Crest Smooth White. You're going to get gold glitter, silver glitter, blue raspberry, limeade, chocolate, and snow cone. Now, even though it looks like the glitter comes off, it does not. And it's also sticky, as you can see from my finger sticking on the back. So you can pull that sheet off of that. For our first collection, it is called Always Changing. And what's going to come into this, as always, is your envelope. Your pattern paper is double-sided, and it is by Scrapping for Less, and it's called Always Changing. Your stamp set is by Lawn Fawn, called One in a Chameleon. You're going to get 2 white flags by Desiree. You're going to get an 18-inch piece of brown cord by Desiree. And then you're also going to get your sequin mix. For your second collection, it is called Slowy and Slothy. I had to say that slow. Your paper, once again, is by Scrapping for Less, and it's called Slowy and Slothy. Okay, let's just go with that. Your stamp set is by Sunny Studio, called Thanks a Sloth. You're going to get your sequin mix, a leaf die by Desiree, and some green rhinestones, also by Desiree. Collection 3 is called In the Desert. Your pattern papers by Scrapping for Less, called the same. Your stamp set is by Newton's Nook, and it's called Meerkat Stamp. You're going to get a mustard colored doily, 18-inch of twine with a flower, and they are both by Desiree, along with the gold brads. And again, you will get a sequin mix by Scrapping for Less. Collection 4 is called Bird Talk. These papers have a watercolor feel and look to them, and again, they are by Scrapping for Less. The stamp set in this is also by Scrapping for Less with the same name. By Desiree, you're going to get white gold dot tags and flowers, and then of course your sequin mix by Scrapping for Less. Now again, all those items there is the double dip. If you go into the banana split collection, these are the items that you will get. A Ranger Mini Distress Ink Cube. It will be a random color. Mine just happened to be Victorian Velvet. You'll get some alphabet stickers by Desiree, a die that it says Go Wild, and then also an exotic sentiment stamp set that will go with all of your collections. So again, all of that if you go with the banana split. So let's get started. So for card 1, I'm actually following sketch 1. As always, I've done all of my coloring and any fussy cutting offline. So I've already cut down my pieces. I've placed, and you can see I've colored my images, or this image, using my Prismacolor alcohol markers, and I will have a color chart shown on my blog if you're interested in the colors that I used, if you should have the Prismacolors. I've layered that onto a piece of cardstock along with another piece of pattern paper cut down, and I'm going to put that on a mat as well. I've then taken another piece of the pattern paper and I've cut about a 1.5-inch strip wide so that I can create the banner that's coming from my image. I'm just going to eye this and use the pattern paper as my guide when I cut it. Going to cut it a little bit shorter because that was a little long. And then I'm going to use my smaller scissors so that I can create a banner within that. You can see when it came to the chameleon, again, whenever I think of a chameleon, again, they change colors. So I wanted to make sure that I put a rainbow going through the chameleon, which actually was fun. Yes. I'm going to use my liquid glue to adhere the banner. And then we're going to prop that up onto that panel using some double-sided foam squares. Once that is set, we will place that onto our standard A2 size card base, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. In this case, it will be a side folding card. I'm going to make sure that's straight. And then I'm going to use some of the sequins from the collection just to accent around the chameleon. Now, what I love about these sequins is, depending upon how you're looking at them, they will change as well. I will be using my wax pencil to lift up the sequins and place them down onto my card design. Now, everyone asks after I put a sequin down, I always rub my fingers over it. I'm just removing the extra glue that may have seeped through the sequin in case it's there. Now it's a habit, so I do it every time. So it's kind of funny. So for card number 2, or collection 2 that I used, I'm going to be following sketch 3. And again, they will be linked down below as well. I used the die and cut out many of these leaves. I did use some scrap paper from my stash, and I'm using one of my Nuvo sponges with the Distress Ink Mowed Lawn, and I'm either going heavily or I'm going just on the edge. I just want to give them some shading so that they'll have some texture, and I'm going to use those to add to the image. Now again, for my image, I did color that offline. And I did use my Prisma alcohol markers, but I did use the Copics that I do use often are the cools and the warms, so I did use the warms for my little sloth there. You can see that I'm layering. I've cut down some cardstock and I'm just layering it, and in some cases I'm letting the pattern paper add multiple colors, so that one had stripes. The way that it was cut, I was able to get 2 colors on the top of that, and then I'm going to use the dark brown that came in the kit cardstock to frame that. Excuse me. So I'll have that at the top and the bottom. I'm just going to trim some of the brown off so that it's the same width as it is on the bottom. I'm okay if it's not straight. I just didn't want to pull out a trimmer, just saying. I'm going to glue that down onto another mat, and then now we're going to start our layering. I do like to use a combination of liquid adhesive and foam tape for obvious reasons. Really, when it comes to liquid adhesive, you can't, unless you use a glue gun, a hot glue gun, you really don't get dimension. Unless you put your glue on really thick. So, of course, your foam tape does come into play when it comes to that. Other than that, I do like liquid adhesive the most rather than a tape runner. It's one that I do gravitate to. My liquid adhesive is art glitter glue that I like. Either that or the Nuvo. So once that's set in place, I made sure that the sloth image was straddling the banner, so both liquid and the foam tape had to be used. Now I'm going to start placing my leaves. So instead of just having the branch there, I mean, absolutely adorable image, but again, I elongated it, you know, that branch coming down from below the sloth. I actually used a pen to extend those lines to color that in. Just so that he wasn't sitting base at, you know, right at the bottom, because I wanted these leaves to come off the top. So again, you can alter the stamp image to stretch it, to use it different ways. But I really wanted these leaves to pop off the card. So again, using liquid adhesive and double-sided foam tape, we're just having all kinds of fun propping them up and getting those into place. And then just adding a little bit of glue because I allowed the double-sided foam squares to stick everything down there. I'm going to come in with some of the gems and just add a little bit of bling inside the tray. So, they're my coconuts there. I don't know. It was just, whatever. Yeah, I guess I made it look like a palm tree, but I think it's cute. So, I'm then going to come in with my sparkle pen by Spectrum Noir, because this would be the best way to add sparkle and shimmer without glitter all over the place. Yes. So I'm just going to go over each of the leaves. Now remember, when you do this, because I use a distress ink, you want to make sure that you clean off your alcohol, or not your alcohol, oh my god, your sparkle pen, because it will pick up the green. Again, distress inks are water reactive or a liquid reactive, so they kind of helps move that ink around as well. So for collection 3, I'm using sketch 4, and I wanted to use the doily. So we're just going to start layering our card with using the cardstock. I am going to use some foam tape to prop up the one panel that's coming onto the side. I will trim that down, and then I took the flower off carefully off of the twine. Now this is a nice thick, I refer to it as a burlap twine, which is really nice. So I'm just saying, okay, how do I want this to sit in the middle? How do I want this to come around? So I folded it in half, and then I'm going to use a piece of double-sided tape so that I can lay that down. So I want it to stick to the back and make sure it sticks. So I always put one layer down and then I take another layer on top, so because I tend to really pull on things, so it wouldn't come apart. Yeah. Once I have that set, I'm going to flip my card over, cross the twine over each other, and then I'm going to snip this end so that I can get it to lay flat. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the back on the other side. Make sure I can get it, try to make it as even as possible from top to bottom. If it's not, I'm good with it. Let it go. It's a handmade card. We're not Hallmark. I think we're better. So making sure that's secured, making sure my cross is kind of in the center. You really don't see it with what I do. But again, when I make a card, I think I'm going to the left with the design, and all of a sudden I put on the brakes and I'll go to the right. That's the beauty of creating something, because you control it. You create what you want to create. So I'm going to take the doily, I'm going to use some double-sided foam tape, and I'm going to double that up. So it's going to be 2 layers like we would with a shaker card, and then I'm going to straddle where it crosses, because it's kind of thick, and even still it's still popping up there, but that's okay. We can hide that, and we can also hide that we can see through the doily with the double-sided tape. So I'm sitting here checking out the flower, and I'm like, what can we do? I tried taking the button off, but it is really secured on there, and I didn't want to rip the flower. So I'm going to cut the ends of one of the brads using my cutters that I use to cut my dies. So I'm just trying to get up as close as I can to the rounded edge. So that's going to become the center of the flower. So I'm going to pull in the big gun glue. This stuff it's been referred to by many, it's like a hot glue gun, but it's cold. I mean, it acts the same, it operates the same, it is wonderful. So I'm going to set that onto the button, and I'm going to set the top down onto that as well. Make sure I clean out the edges, and then let that dry. It does not take long to set. So, but I do believe any glue would work. But I just like to use that one. I'm going to use my art glitter glue to set that right in the center, right on top where the twine is crossing, is actually where I'm setting that. And if you notice, the leaves stretching out cover up the double-sided foam tape that you can see. I'm going to trim off the edge because I let that go over the edge. And I'm going to adhere this onto, again, my standard A2 size card base, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And in this case, this one is a side folding, but you can make it, or excuse me, it's a top folding, but you can make it a side folding if you want, just depending. I did not add a sentiment to that card, because you don't always have to add a sentiment. You know, if you leave it blank and you have that box, you can use these for any occasion, whether it's a celebration, a birthday. You could use this one for fall because of the colors that you used. So sometimes it's good to keep your options open. Yes, that's sometimes what we do in life, right? All right. I'm just going to add some glue dots, and I'm going to accent along the doily with some of the sequins that come within this collection. And then I am also going to add sequins going up the side where the pattern paper has the triangle images. But I will use a different sequin for that as well. So it's kind of like a mixed media card. You know, we've got different textures going on, different looks, and so on. So it's just something a little bit different. So that card, again, can be used for any type of design. Sorry, lost my train of thought there. Okay, for the next card, here we go. You can see, again, colored my image. Now, what I'm doing now is I am stamping a mask, and I'm using my Gina K masking paper. I've cut out that image, and I'm going to put that over my parrot. Now, yes, I did use different colors for my parrot, but again, I did use the Prismacolors, my alcohol markers, to color that image. Again, color chart, blog. So I'm going to cover that up, and I'm going to be using a small stencil. And this stencil is great. It's by Newton's Nook, so it's small, so it's always on my table, which means I'll lose it. It'll get buried. And I'm going to pull in my oxides and my Ranger blending brushes, and I'm just going to go from top to bottom adding colors. Now, I thought I was also going to add some Salty Ocean to this. I just stuck with the tumbled glass. I wanted the color to be light, just a light background going in behind the parrot. And again, you really don't, you know, this could be the extent of your scene. I mean, you don't have to have, I mean, you can add some images in the background, you know, some higher trees, make it look like, you know, he's sitting in the forest or whatever. But again, just adding the clouds just adds a little bit of texture to your paper. And make sure that it doesn't look like, you know, this branch is just floating in the sky. So once I have those done, I already, as you can see, have my pieces of pattern paper cut, and I chose some really bright colors, only because I did color the parrot very bright. I didn't use the traditional colors. I kind of wanted to do my own thing on that. So once that's done, I'm going to pull out the masking paper, and we have our image protected. We're going to start layering our paper, and I will be propping these two panels up using some double-sided foam tape. And then I'll be straddling that image across those two pieces of paper. I really like the look of these. They have a great watercolor feel to them. So if you're not comfortable using watercolors, these will give you that look in your background. I'm going to evenly set these going across, and then I'm going to trim the bottom to make it even all the way around. So an easy way to create your mat, you don't have to cut a mat for each of them. In this collection came these flowers, and I really liked them. because they have like gems in the center or they have a bead. So it just adds another element. You can certainly add those elements if you want as well. So once I chose the ones that I was going to use them, I'm going to surround the bottom corner of the parrot. Didn't want to cover the image up too much because let's face it, even though it's a small image, we still take a lot of time to color our images. So just placing them down around the bottom corner. And then I stamped my sentiment that says, "Hello, gorgeous." Now, after I cut this down and trimmed it, for some reason that white was just very bright to me, even though everything here was bright. It could be because, or maybe my eye was looking at the flowers because they are in a neutral shade, where everything else is pretty white in the background. So I did just grab the salty ocean and I'm just scraping along the edge, which will give it somewhat of a distressed look without distressing it. And then when I place that down, you can it actually framed it. So that's kind of why I did that, in case anyone was wondering. I don't know. Maybe, I just thought maybe someone would ask. I will prop that up with some double-sided foam tape off of one end. And so that is set. So it just helped to frame it just a little bit. Again, use your inks. You could do that with any ink that you have in your stash. I'm going to set this down onto my standard A2 size card base. Again, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. It is even on each of the sides and just shows the card base on the top and the bottom, just to give it more of a frame. So if you should go with the banana split collection, these are the items that I will be using. So I've already stamped the flower. I think it's a hibiscus. I'm bad with flowers. And then the leaf, and I stamped those along. Now this is Bristol cardstock that I am using. I'm using my finger sponge dauber, and I'm using the color, the Victorian velvet that came in, or I'm going to use the Victorian velvet that came with the kit. Now, you can see that I've got that dark, I've got it light. Now, I've only used dots. I'm pulling in my spray box, and I'm just going to go to town and add water to this. One of the things that I love when it comes to either the distress inks or the oxides is they will move on their own. Once you put the water and just tip this paper, it's going to go all over. So knowing that I put a darker spot in the flowers and a lighter one in the leaves, I was going to get the different colors. I just set that in my box. Now, here's a tip. So you want to make sure that you put like a piece of paper towel down when you use a box, because you've sprayed other things in there. Yeah, they transfer. Wow. Yeah, had a lot of red going on there. But I just went with it. It was alright. It was actually, the red was actually bleeding up into my piece. So I eventually did put a piece of paper towel down in there so while it dries. I did let this dry naturally. And you can see I have the different colors that come out. I trimmed it down to fit the base that I'm putting together, and I'm carefully tearing around the edge of that. This is going to sit on the bottom of this pattern paper. I fell in love with this piece of pattern paper. It was just gorgeous. It just reminded me of the ocean sunset, and then these flowers almost look like the sand coming up into it because I created the jagged edge. It's just very artsy here. Yeah. It's way out there. So once I have that done, I'm going to prop that up using some double-sided tape. I'm going to trim off the edge that's overhanging because this panel is already cut to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I'm going to come in with my finger sponge dauber and just add some ink to the top edge, just to add a little bit of shading to that, just to tone that down just a little bit. And I am going to go through the entire piece to do that as well. I don't want to take away the different colors that are in there. I just wanted to add just a touch more so that I didn't see so much white. I cut out the sentiment die 5 times and layered them. So you actually will have 3 pieces. The G, O, and the W are together. The I is separate. And then the L and the D are together as well. So each one of those pieces was die cut 5 times. Now what would really be cool is if you die cut one like 5 times, another one 2, or another one 3, and then another one 1, so you'd have different layers. So that's kind of cool when you put your sentiment together. You can get these step layers when you put that onto your card. But I decided to go even with it. And I'm putting that up on the top because since this card has so much, again, just from the pattern paper alone and adding that one panel, you've got so many different levels going on here. I will attach this to my standard A2 size card base using my liquid adhesive. And then I'm going to, wow, sorry about that. And then I will come in with my white gel pen just to accent the sentiment. Because even though it's black, it kind of is getting, you're losing part of it, or at least I was, in the blue, or that teal blue color. So just by adding, using a white gel pen, or if you have a white acrylic pen, you know, whatever you may have, it just helps to make that sentiment stand out just a little bit. Now you can add so many more things to this. You could add sequins, you could add your sparkle pens, you could add splatters. Whatever it is you want to do, you can do that. So I thought that one was a lot of fun. So I do hope that you enjoyed the projects that I made using the Scrapping for Less Flavor of the Month card kit for August. And remember, the theme is exotic animals. All the links will be down below in the video description, and that includes links to their blog, their shop. They have a wonderful online store. Of course, the link so that you make sure you get your card kit because you don't want to miss out on this. And then, of course, the links to the ingredients to your kit, and then also the sketches. So if you want to use that, you can certainly do that. If you have a question or comment, please leave those down below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. I want to thank you so much for stopping by, taking the time to watch the video. If you haven't already, I'd love for you to subscribe. Make sure you ring the bell because you don't want to miss what's coming next. I hope everyone's having a great day, but always remember what's most important. Always be creative.